What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel, and in today's episode we're going to talk about something that means quite a bit to a lot of people, and that's their pocketbook. What we're going to talk about today is do-it-yourself pest control versus having a professional company come and do it. What the benefits are, what the pros and cons are, and how in essence in doing it yourself you can save thousands of dollars over a period of time. Let's get into it. So I need to go back in time just a couple months. So back in April, I was out in my garden tilling some of the dead debris from a dethatching application and getting it all tilled in when I felt something up by my face. I went and wiped it away, and all of a sudden it immediately got like searing hot. I didn't know what it was. I just thought that maybe my fingernail had scratched my skin, and maybe it was getting a little infected almost immediately. I didn't really think anything of it. So that night when I went to bed, it was still irritated, but I had a very extreme shortness of breath. So much so to the point to where I couldn't catch my breath all night. The very next morning, I woke up and there was my skin right here, and you can still see the light color discoloration, light pink, light red. It was all puffy and it was starting to swell. And I've had that before. I knew immediately what it was at that point in time, and it was a spider bite. Thanks. Because when I bit by a spider, I usually tend to have some adverse reactions.
Wow, great reflexes.
Think you're pretty funny, don't you, freak?
Help him, Harry.
Which one?
So Back to the Future is a bunch of bullshit.
Now that leads me into the purpose of today's video. Now, I'm not afraid of spiders. I have to admit, I don't necessarily like what they do when they bite me. But my wife is extremely afraid of pests and spiders, and she just doesn't want them in the house. So for the last decade, I have relented that we pay a professional pest control company to come in and spray our house. And about 3 weeks ago, this company that we had hired out came out to the house. They started with the inside of the house, and he actually started in the office where I was working. And when he came in, he barely put anything down, like just and it didn't seem like, to me, like he did anything really. So then that started getting my curiosity up, and so I kind of acted like I was just out in the yard working, and I watched and paid attention to what he did. He probably put down less than a gallon of product on the entire house. He knew that I was kind of keeping an eye on him, and he kind of applied just a little extra, a little bit more. And I could tell that that wasn't the normal way of doing things, the modus operandi. So I went and kind of kept an eye on what he did, and it really, again, it just didn't seem like he was doing very much. And he was only at our house for maybe 20 minutes. That's both inside and outside, total. So what that began to do is that began to send me down the rabbit hole, and I began to pull and tug at that string. How much are we paying them? Which I wasn't exactly sure. When I asked, come to find out that we pay them on a one-time application $129 each time. And we're contracted for 4 applications a year. So basically one at the turn of every season. And I began to think, how much money are we spending on a yearly basis, and what would that eventually reach to in a certain given amount of time? And at $129 at 4 times a year, that's $516 a year instead of keeping it to myself. And how much would it cost me to actually, in a year's time, be able to apply the product? I did a little bit more research because that's how I am, and I come to find out I can do this for a lot cheaper. And to be bluntly honest, the results of how much it costs me versus how much they're probably spending is kind of disgusting. In fact, so disgusting, that's why I'm sharing it with you today. Now, in my research, I found that the product that most people use, or most professionals use, can be found on domyown.com and can be, over the length of time that you're going to be using it, way cheaper. So let's look at it. Let's see what we've got to work with. Now, in my research, there were 2 products that were used. Both had the active ingredient of Bifenthrin in them. The one that was recommended was Talstar. Talstar Professional. I got the gallon jug, but here's the thing. It has its companion, or its like kind, which is the exact same thing, and I already had a jug of this, so I actually spent more money than I should have, is Bifenthrin. It's a little bit cheaper, not by much, but it is still cheaper, and that's what you would use for your outdoor application, anything that goes outside. The reason why you do something different for the interior, you could still use the Bifenthrin or the Talstar, but it does tend to leave a little white powdery residue when it dries. So on the interior, I went with what was recommended as the Transport. This is still Bifenthrin, and it also has another ingredient of acetamiprid. I don't know how to say that. Acetamiprid, 5%. Okay, that's what we're going to be using on the interior. It doesn't leave that white residue, and it's a little bit more recommended to use indoors. Now, please keep in mind that when I'm talking about the disparity between the expense of a professional application, it's going to come with some pros. Professional application, you don't have to put your hands on the chemical, you don't have to do any of that, but there are some downsides because you have to schedule a time for them to be do the application both outside and inside, mainly inside. And then the question comes, like with any professional application, what exactly are they putting down, and are they putting at a strength that's going to help keep the pests away and be effective?
Well, that's a real question, isn't it? Why?
Now there's the other expenses, such as the tools that they use. Well, this is all they used. This is a 2-gallon pump sprayer that I use for any of my insecticides. We're going to actually use this for any of our exterior applications using the Talstar, or if you wanted, the Bifenthrin IT. And I'm going to use a gallon sprayer because you won't be using nearly as much on the interior. And that's one about this size. This is not actually the one, because this is a gallon size, $16. I've got one that's separate that's going to be coming that I use for the interior. I actually use that with all of my cleaner and cleaning products. Now, the cost of the Talstar at the application rate that's recommended is 1 ounce per gallon. You could actually use probably half an ounce and make it stretch farther, but for this first application and for any of my calculations, I'm just going at the full rate of 1 ounce per gallon per 1,000 square feet. Funny thing is it's the same type of application rate as what you'd have putting any products down on your yard. Then, with the application rate of the interior, the Transport product, it's 1 1/4 ounces per gallon. Now, very much less product, but you're not spraying out that much. And I'm only, according to the recommendations, you're only going to use about 1/4 to maybe half of a gallon on the interior. So this is actually going to stretch out longer. Now, the total cost, when you look at that in the application of just the chemicals, came to just under $2.
What'd you just say?
That's right, just under $2.
I've won in $21.2 million. Woo! 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 Ow! Love that money.
Now the last thing that I purchased was something that helps me get up into those hard to reach places, like the eaves. And I've got some fairly high eaves. They're at least 20 feet up in the air. So I purchased this handy dandy little extension brush. It's an Eversprout. It's a little bit better built than most of the ones that I've seen online, so I popped the extra money. Now I think this was right around the mid-60s. Now if you've never used a product like this or even seen a bottle with this little triangular apparatus on top of the bottle, obviously it's meant to gauge something. Well, this is where you can measure how much product you need and not make a mess. And it's simply measured out like so. To be able to use this, you simply take it and tilt it down to where the product will fill the reservoir. Now, I'm currently way maxed out. I'm currently way up here. Well, I don't need that much. I only need 2 ounces. So you simply trim it back a little bit. Right there, I'm at 4. Drop a little bit more out. Just a little bit over 2. Still a little bit over 2. And right there, that's my 2 ounces. Right there, that's how much product I need. So now that I'm at that, now I'm able to put that in my tank sprayer. I've already got it measured out, and I've saved myself from making a mess or trying to put it into a measuring cup to be able to measure out my product. Especially if it's only 2 ounces. That's not very much. You barely even get any into a measuring cup at all. Now when I mix product, I usually like to at least put 1 gallon of water in the tank before I add the actual product I'm going to try to mix up. Okay. Now that I've got this measured, now all I need to do, and the way to pour it so that you're not getting stuff glubbing back over, is to simply take and tilt it at an angle and pour it sideways. And then bring it down. That will keep any of this product from coming down this direction. And be careful, don't tip it too much, but you're just looking to get out what's in this reservoir. Any farther and you'll get more product in there than you need. So now that we've got that, now we'll top off the rest of our water. Now I'm at my max fill of 2 gallons right there. That'll leave me enough space for the pressure plunger to come down in. Always make sure that you put it at the max fill and look where that is, because if you were to fill it up too much, when you go to put that pressure pump down in, again, it's going to displace any additional water. If I had that too high and I went to push that in, it would push the water out, and both the water and the product that's mixed with would then spill over. Now that I've got it mixed up, and again, it doesn't take much to mix this up. If you wanted to take if you had a drill with one of the little paint stirrers on the end, you could do that. I'm not going to really worry about it on this one, but it's mixed up, we're good to go. And now all I've got to do is pressurize my tank. It does not take, especially at the beginning, a lot of force and pressure to top it out. All you need is to where it's pushing back against you. And that's enough. So in this case, it took me 6, 7, 8 pumps. Now I'm good. Now let's get to spraying. I choose to spray and how I choose to spray is going to be dependent on where number one, I've seen bugs. I like to spray anywhere that is along a crease or a crevice, and you usually want to go up about 3 feet up above and 3 feet out from an area. I also like to spray anywhere where I've seen bugs at, and any crevices, any places that there might be housing any bugs. So I'll go up here, I'll go up along here, I'll spray into these areas. Now a lot of times people say, well, you're spraying an insecticide, you better put on your PPE. Well, so far I haven't got anything on me. I'm usually pretty good about it. If you want to wear PPE, go ahead. But I highly recommend it if you're fearful that you might get cancer or die.
What's the matter?
I have a headache.
It might be a tumor.
It's not a tumor. It's not a tumor at all.
Wear eye protection, something of that nature, so you don't get the product in your face.
I can taste the bubbles. Actually, I can't.
Now, when it comes to spraying around doors and up in coves and things like that, again, when I watched this young man spray my house, he never moved anything. Now, I'm taking the time to move it because I'm the homeowner and I want it done right. You always want to make sure that you cover all of the cracks and crevices, even up in areas like this where spiders and things like that might be hanging out. When it comes to your door frames, you want to spray up Now, when is it safe? When this dries, it's perfectly safe. You can touch it, you're good to go. But when it's still wet, then I'd keep your kids, your pets, and even yourself away from it until it dries. Now, a lot of this area, there's a lot of nooks, a lot of crannies, a lot of corners and things, and I've been able to reach it with just the spray. But what happens, Ryan, if I don't have the ability to be able to reach it with my sprayer? Now, there are battery-powered pump sprayers that can reach quite a ways, but not all of them will reach quite as high as what you necessarily need to get because your eaves might be a little higher. Now, on something like this, where I'm at least probably 18 to 20 feet up in an eave, I'm not going to be able to get my pump sprayer or any type of pump sprayer to necessarily reach that. So the best way to accomplish this is to take the Everspout. So first thing is I'm going to soak the head.
That's what she said. Oh my God, what did I say?
With product. Now that's plenty, got plenty of stuff. Now I'm going to apply it. Just as a quick PSA, one thing to always remember is that with Bifenthrin, never spray it on any plants that are flowering, have flowers, because it will kill pollinators. So like your bees, things like that. Bees are our friends. We don't want to have them die off because we're spraying this. But anything else, spiders, things like that, and before you haters sit there and go after me and say, well, spiders are important too, well, that's fine. But when they bite me, and I have a reaction like I do, I'm not quite so sympathetic. I'm more like this.
They are dying. Let them die. Let them die. Let them die.
got about between half a gallon and a quart left, probably closer to a quart, but that'll be just enough to get the entire interior of the garage done. We're using the exterior stuff because we don't have to worry about the residue, because Mama don't care if my garage has got white residue, she just wants the spiders out. Okay, so my wife just came outside as I'm doing this, and she said, what did you say?
Said you're pretty sexy when you kill all the bugs, you know.
She says I'm pretty sexy when I kill all the bugs. She didn't realize that she was sleeping with her bug man too.
Awesome.
You're doing great.
You're gonna be a star.
And cut.
Now again, to mix this up just like we did before, you bring the product forward, you can fill the reservoir. You can see that the reservoir is all the way maxed out, that way over 3 or 4 ounces. We only need 1.25 per gallon, so we're gonna drain it off and we're gonna get down to that 1.25. The 1.25 being right here. Right now we're just under 2.5. Just a little still above. And then we're at 1 1/4, right on the money. Now remember, this is an entire gallon. From everything I read, most people, the application is probably maybe half of a gallon on the interior of the inside. We'll see. I haven't, this is the first time I'm doing it, so we'll see how much I use. Okay, so now we're on the inside. And all we're gonna do is just a light application around the door frame. Yeah, this is my first time ever using this, so I'm a little bit messy. Just that easy.
Whoop-de-doo! What does it all mean, Basil?
Okay guys, we're going to go over this Excel spreadsheet that I put together because that's how I like to visualize things, and it helps me to actually use it for now and for future use. So what I've got here is I've got the contracted amount of how much I was paying per session or per application per year, and I kept that the same, and I'm going to keep it the same with my do-it-myself. I then came down and put in what each of the items that I purchased cost me. So the Talstar Pro insecticide was $67.98, with taxes came to $72.91, and the size of my container is 128 ounces, so a full gallon. I put in how many ounces is recommended to use, and this is the current max rate per gallon per thousand is 1 ounce. In that I'm using 2 gallons in the entire application, it's going to be 2 ounces every time I use it. Because I'm using out the 2-gallon pump barrel. That brings me down to a cost per per this 1 ounce of 57 cents per ounce is what it's going to cost me when you divide this by the 128. So my total cost for each application is going to be $1.14. As I come down to the transport or the interior, things change a little bit. The cost is a little bit more, brings me to $91.60. And the size of the container was 32 ounces, so we're talking a quart. That brought my cost per ounce to $2.86. Still completely reasonable. When I'm only using 1 1/4 ounces per gallon though, and in the application that I just did on the interior, I use between 1/5 to maybe just a little under half of a gallon of total product. Therefore, the cost of the application came to $1.43 when I used it. I've still got product still left in that gallon tank sprayer, but we're looking at what this is going to cost me on the total application. As I come down, I put in what I paid for a Husqvarna 2-gallon tank sprayer. Now, again, you can get any 2-gallon tank sprayer. I'm just putting down what I have, what I received, what I got, and of course included the tax. When I did that, now I'll put links in the descriptions to all these products. There are some that are no longer there anymore. So like the Husqvarna 2-gallon tank sprayer, there's one that's a little bit more, but I'm going to put in one that's a similar price to this one. In fact, I think it's a little bit cheaper, but I'll put that in the link in the description below. But what that does on a cost per application for the year, if I only did this for 1 year, divided by the 4 applications, that would put me at $10.72. But here's where it starts to spread that cost out, because I've got my variable up here that I'm going to put in as far as number of years, and that's going to affect what we've got down here. So what that does is, as I begin and continue to use this past a year, if I were only to use it for the year, it'd be $10.72. If I use it past that point, it's going to then take my cost per application down and kind of, in a way, amortize it, except this time it's variable. It's not set to a certain number of years until I set the time here, but it will break it down and divvy that cost up a little bit smaller, so I can see, well, if I'm going to use this for X amount of years, and that is assuming that the product is going, as far as the tank sprayers are going to last that long. Some will, some won't, but we're just going to use this as a hypothetical that the tank sprayer, given that I'm only using it 4 times a year, will last a certain number of years. And then I come down to my gallon tank sprayer that I use for the interior. The ones that you can get that are very affordable and they do the exact same job were about $15.98, came to $17.14 with tax. And again, if I were to divide that by 4 applications in a year, it'd be $4.28. To finish out the rest of any of the materials and the items that I'm using to apply the product over and above the product itself, I purchased the Eversprout 18-foot extension pole with the little end here that you can then soak and then put up in your eaves and then apply the product. That cost me $59.99 on Amazon. Again, I'll put the link in the description below. And total cost was $64.34 with tax. So again, in a cost per application for a year, that would be dividing it down and put it at $16.08. And this is where things get to become very interesting as I begin to add the years. So when I add a 1 year of application, I've got my total cost for the pest control for the total years. So we take the 129 times it by the 4, and that puts me at $516. If I take my total cost via the do-it-yourself over the total years, and right now the total year is just 1, my cost, because this is including all of the product, and as far as the application, what it's going to cost me per application here on these, because these are going to spread out, of course, but then the cost of application combined for the entire year. Now, in this current case, since I'm only putting the 1 year and the 4 applications, it's going to put my cost per application at $10.72 and give me my total of $42.88 is going to be included in this. This will begin to go down as we begin to add our years on, and you'll see that here in just a second. Much like the same thing with the cost per application on my gallon sprayer and the Eversprout. So my total savings for just 1 year of doing it myself versus what the materials cost me was $381.36. But this is where things start to quantify, and I want to really key in on this. At the size of the container, at 2 ounces per application, that and times 4 applications a year, that's 8 ounces a year of this product. It's a gallon-sized product. This is going to last me 16 years. Who knows, and I'll be honest, who knows if the product will even be as effective in 16 years. So would I go maybe a smaller application or a smaller gallon size or a quart size or whatever? That might work, but maybe my cost per that size of container might be a little bit more. I went with what I went with, so we're just going to go off of that. Same thing with the size of the container of the 32 ounces. If I'm doing the 0.4 application at a 1 1/4 application rate per gallon, and I'm only using a little less than half, that actually, both of these equate out to, if you do the math, to a total of 16 years. So these will both expire as far as usage at the same time frame as far as what I'm using on each application. But let's just go in and let's look what happens to these numbers. So if I go to 2 years, that takes my total pest control, if I were to pay out a company, of $1,032 in 2 years. And my cost of the DIY, because I've taken each application times the 4, and then as you can see, as I spread it out, now my cost per application in what would be 8 applications for this 2-gallon tank sprayer, likewise the 1 gallon, and likewise the Eversprout, starts to come down, and that brings my total cost down on a yearly basis. And then my savings are going up. So as we begin to add the years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 6. Oops. It's like the savings are so big that it wouldn't allow me to keep that in there. 7, 8. Okay, so we're at 8 years. We're halfway through our product. We're halfway through, hopefully, the lifespan of these products here. But let's go to the 16 years that when I need to purchase these items again. Now, granted, by that time, I'd imagine that the cost of these products will be much more with inflation. We all know about inflation, right? It's just transitory.
Come on, man.
But with that total cost, I would have to then purchase it again. So let's see what it would take in 16 years when these have expired and I've used it all. $8,256 is what it would cost me to do 16 years of application. That's some money out of my pocket. My total cost for the total amount. So by the time I've hit this, I've used all of these together. In fact, let's just add those up and we'll see if that's what that adds up to. So just shy of $300. I'm going to add this up. Follow along with me. So $72.91 plus $91.60 plus $42.88 plus $17.14 plus $64.34. $288.87, because I've just now I'll have to purchase more product, and the cost on the application gets down more and more. In 16 years, my total application, so you're talking 4 times 16, so you're talking 64 total applications, it cost me 67 cents each time I used that gallon tank sprayer. And likewise, these other items go down and down and down. Now, once I have to repurchase these items, and who knows, maybe I'll have to repurchase these, then that would start over again. But my point is, no wonder these items or these companies make as much money as they do. That is absolutely crazy. So in 16 years, I'll put out $288.87 versus $8,256, and we'll save $7,000, just a little under $8,000 worth of total product. Absolutely astounding. Pretty cool.
smashing, Basil. Oh, this coffee smells like...
It is Austin.
Oh, good, then it's not just me. It's a bit nutty.
Hey, thanks for watching. Please hit that subscribe button and hit that notification bell for any notifications on any future videos being posted. Also, like, share with your friends, and please comment down below. It really helps. And we'll see you in the next one.